Asterisk, asterisk. Stop forcing what God is already building. Why your delay isn't denial, asterisk, asterisk. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start by introducing you to someone whose work is quietly revolutionizing the way Black women professionals and entrepreneurs understand rest, resilience, and divine timing. Her name is Marci Johnson, and she is not just a voice in the wilderness. She is a movement builder, a faith led strategist, a champion for women who have spent decades carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. Marcy's insights on God's promises, spiritual development, and the power of softness in leadership are transforming lives, businesses, and entire communities. Today, I want to share with you the profound wisdom that emerged from our conversation. Wisdom that challenges everything we have been taught about waiting, working, and winning. Let me start with a question that might make you deeply uncomfortable. What if the delay you are experiencing right now, the closed door, the unanswered prayer, the business that has not taken off yet, what if that is not evidence that God forgot about you? What if it is evidence that God is developing something in you that is too big, too powerful, too transformative to fit into the old structures you have been trying to squeeze into? Most of us have been taught to think of waiting as passive. We sit, we pray, we hope. We scroll through social media, watching everyone else's highlight reel while we wonder why our breakthrough has not come yet. But Marci Johnson shared something with me that flipped that entire narrative on its head. She said, God's promise is not delayed, it is developing. And for Black professionals and entrepreneurs, those quiet seasons, those frustrating in between moments, are often the most productive spiritually and strategically. God is aligning resources. God is refining character. God is positioning you for rooms you have not even imagined yet. Think about that for a second. The very resistance you face in corporate spaces and business for being Black, for being a woman, for being faith led, that resistance is not evidence that God's promise is blocked. It is often evidence that the promise is too big to fit into the old structures. You are not being rejected. You are being redirected. You are not being delayed. You are being developed. Now, I know some of you are thinking, oh, that sounds nice, but I am tired. I have been waiting. I have been working. I have been believing, and I am exhausted. And that brings me to the second counterintuitive idea Marci Johnson shared with me. She said, you do not have to choose between being soft and being successful. Living in your soft girl era as a Black professional is not about shrinking, being lazy, or avoiding hard work. It is about building your life and business on God's pace, God's peace, and God's promise instead of hustle culture and burnout. Rest, joy, and boundaries can be spiritual strategies for stewarding God's promise, not distractions from it. Let me say that again. Rest, joy, and boundaries are not distractions from your promise. They are strategies for stewarding it. This is revolutionary, especially for Black women who have been taught that softness is weakness, that rest is laziness, that boundaries are selfish. We have been conditioned to believe that if we are not grinding, we are not worthy. If we are not overextending, we are not valuable. If we are not saying yes to everyone and everything, we are not good enough. But what if the opposite is true? What if your softness, your rest, your boundaries um, are actually the keys to unlocking the fullness of what God has promised you? Let me give you a real example. Tabitha Brown. You know her. The woman who greets you with, hello there, beautiful, and makes you feel like everything is going to be okay. Tabitha Brown spent years, decades, pursuing acting in Hollywood. She faced rejection after rejection. She worked multiple jobs, including driving for Uber just to make ends meet. She dealt with chronic health issues that left her in severe pain and forced her to stop working traditional jobs. And through it all, She held on to the belief that God had a purpose and a promise for her life, even when she saw no evidence of it. Then in her 40s, after years of what looked like delay, something shifted. She started sharing vegan recipes and encouragement on social media. She chose a tone of kindness, softness, and joy. She spoke to her audience as honey and sis instead of becoming bitter or harsh about her past disappointments. And that simple video review of a vegan sandwich went viral. Doors started opening, partnerships with Whole Foods, a major multi collection collaboration with Target, best selling books, a media presence that reaches millions. Tabitha Brown's journey is a public testimony that what looked like delay was actually God's divine timing. The promise did not come when she thought it should. It came when she stopped trying to fit into Hollywood's mold and leaned fully into who God created her to be. Her softness, her warmth, her faith centered persona became her competitive advantage in business. She did not have to harden herself to carry a hard assignment from God. Now, let me share another story. Tristan Walker. Tristan Walker is a Black entrepreneur who founded Walker and Company Brands, which created Bevel, a shaving system designed specifically for men with coarse or curly hair, particularly Black men. For years, traditional grooming companies ignored the needs of Black men dealing with razor bumps and skin irritation. And as a Black founder, Tristan faced skepticism from investors who questioned whether building a brand specifically targeted to Black men could be big enough. But Tristan held on to a bigger promise, not just a business promise, but a promise about his community's worth. He was deeply committed to serving Black men with a product that honored their specific needs and experiences rather than treating them as an afterthought. He leveraged data and storytelling to convince investors that the market was not just viable, it was powerful. He built brand messaging around identity, confidence, and heritage, affirming that Black consumers deserve premium solutions made with them in mind. And you know what happened? Bevel gained widespread attention and adoption. Walker and Company Brands was acquired by Procter and Gamble, validating his vision and business strategy. Tristan Walker's story shows us that standing on a bigger promise about your community's worth can lead to industry shifting businesses. When you build like God's promise is already true, that you and your community are worthy of excellence, market transformation can follow. And then there is Sarah Jakes Roberts. Sarah became a mother as a teenager and experienced public scrutiny as the daughter of a prominent pastor. She battled shame, insecurity, and the belief that she had disqualified herself from God's best for her life. For years, she wrestled with whether she had forfeited her calling. But over time, through spiritual growth, mentorship, and her own healing process, she came to see that God's promise had not been canceled, only rerouted. Sarah created the Women Evolve Conference and brand as a safe, empowering space for women to heal, learn, and be activated in their purpose. She integrated ministry, media, and entrepreneurship in a way that allowed her to sustain a movement, not just a message. Today, Women Evolve is a major global movement reaching thousands of women annually. Sarah became a best selling author and sought after speaker. Her story helped thousands of women believe that God's promise over their lives was still intact, despite past mistakes or delays. Sarah Jakes Roberts validates that your past does not void God's promise. That is a critical message for Black women navigating shame, perfectionism, and public pressure. She models how a movement can be built around spiritual transformation while also operating as a sustainable enterprise. She encourages Black women professionals and entrepreneurs to build brands and businesses that reflect their healing, wholeness, and God given voice. So, what do these three stories have in common? Tabitha Brown, Tristan Walker, Sarah Jakes Roberts. They all faced delay. They all faced resistance. They all faced moments when it looked like the promise was not going to come to pass. But they held on to three key insights that Marci Johnson shared with me. First, delay is not denial, it is divine development. If God promised it, every no, every closed door, every detour can be repurposed for your preparation. Instead of asking, why is this taking so long? Begin asking, what is God building in me for where He is taking me? Your professional and entrepreneurial delays may be the training ground for leadership, resilience, and spiritual authority you will need when the promise manifests. Second, your softness is not a liability, it is a leadership strategy. Especially as Black professionals and entrepreneurs, we are often taught to armor up, overperform, and suppress our emotions to survive in corporate and business spaces. Embracing your soft girl era, rooted in God's peace, emotional honesty, rest, and self compassion, can actually make you a more effective leader, a more creative founder, and a more authentic brand. You do not have to harden yourself to carry a hard assignment from God. Third, build your business and career as if God's promise is already true. Instead of waiting for everything to look like the promise before you move, start aligning your daily decisions with what God has already spoken. That might look like setting boundaries at work, investing in your healing, starting the side business even while you are still in your 9 to 5, or restructuring your business model to reflect your values. Faith is not just believing, it is architecting your life around what God said before the evidence shows up. Now, I want to challenge you with something. What if the reason your promise has not manifested yet is not because you are not working hard enough, but because you are working in the wrong posture? What if God is waiting for you to stop forcing, stop striving, stop trying to make it happen in your own strength, and start building from a place of rest, peace, and trust? Marci Johnson reminded me that for Black women especially, we have been conditioned to believe that our value is tied to our productivity, that our worth is measured by how much we can carry, that our strength is proven by how much we can endure without breaking. But what if God is inviting you into a different way? What if God is saying, I do not need you to prove yourself? I need you to trust me. I do not need you to hustle harder. I need you to rest deeper. I do not need you to carry everything. I need you to release what was never yours to carry in the first place. This is not about being passive. This is not about sitting back and doing nothing. This is about being strategic. This is about being intentional. This is about building your life and business on God's pace, God's peace, and God's promise. So here's my question for you. If you truly believed that God's promise over your life and business will come to pass, what would you stop forcing and what would you start building differently today? Maybe it is setting a boundary at work so you can rest and hear from God more clearly. Maybe it is finally launching that offer, podcast, or product you have been sitting on. Maybe it is releasing a partnership or environment that no longer aligns with what God has spoken over you. I want you to choose one concrete shift this week that reflects that belief. Write it down, pray over it, and then take one small faith filled step that says, I am planning my life as if God's promise is already true. Because here's the truth that I need you to walk out of here carrying in your bones. God's promise will come to pass, not because you forced it, not because you hustled harder, not because you proved yourself worthy, but because God said it. And God does not lie. Your delay is not your disqualification. Your softness is not your weakness. Your rest is not your regression. You are being developed. You are being positioned. You are being prepared. And when the promise shows up, and it will, you will look back and realize that every closed door, every no, every season of waiting was building you into the person capable of carrying what God always intended for you. So stop forcing what God is already building. Start trusting, start resting, start moving like the promise is already yours because it is.